In 2006, Steve Fambro left the successful biomedical company Illumia to start one of the most innovative companies of the past decade. Steve was interested in transportation.
We're always looking for ways to make our lives easier. And so I started, the project really was to build an efficient way to get around, to specifically be able to drive in the carpool lane, but without being on a motorcycle. After a while, it became an obsession, and I figured that, well, if I wanted to buy something like this, I'd much rather have bought it than try and build it in my garage. Maybe other people would want something like that too, so I wrote a business plan around it, and that's about when I met Chris, and we started the company together and got our first round of funding together.
Steve joined forces with Chris Anthony, an expert on electric vehicle drivetrain, and together they founded a company called Accelerated Composites, which would later be known as Aptera. The company was dedicated to creating high-efficiency road vehicles. The business was initially based around a design of an unconventional three-wheel car which took aerodynamic styling cues from an aircraft. The design was capable of over 300 miles per gallon at 65 miles an hour, yet cost under $30,000. The small vehicle, which was technically classified as a motorcycle, allowed the company to price the car competitively.
But like Honda, Honda started with the scooter, Toyota started with sewing machines. I think unless you have somebody writing you $1 billion check, which they don't, you have to start with a tangible, achievable goal.
Aptera focused on the product and raised a great deal of interest in a short amount of time, without spending much on marketing or advertising.
At the peak of our popularity, we had only spent about a couple of $1,000s for press, if you will, and all that was a tiny ad on treehugger.com.
By August 2008, the company had received over 4,000 deposits for Aptera vehicles, which were scheduled to be delivered by the end of 2008. However, a recession hit and the production schedule slipped. In September of 2008, Steve Fambro hired Paul Wilbur as CEO of Aptera. Paul had a successful track record developing traditional vehicles at General Motors and was well qualified for the position. He and his management team disagreed with the direction of the company and decided to forego development of the original Aptera vehicle in favor of a more traditional vehicle.
All of those cars were exceptional, and the management team, for whatever reason, I'm not here to second guess them. They made a reason that they no longer needed them. And that's that.
Steve Fambro and Chris Anthony left the company at the end of 2009. With the original Aptera vehicle out of the picture, the development costs for the traditional vehicle skyrocketed. Aptera applied for a $184 million loan from the U.S. government, but was eventually denied, and the company entered Chapter 7 liquidation.
The jury is still out on the current electric car players. As volatile and as quickly as the market has been and they've come into the picture, it could be as quickly as they exit the picture.
Even though Aptera has failed, the company's founders are still active entrepreneurs. Steve Fambro has recently started a new company called FamGrow, a company focused on efficiently growing healthy organic food.
I'm fully engaged with my company now. I've got about 20 employees.
His partner and fellow co-founder Chris Anthony is now CEO of two other alternative transportation companies, Epic EVs and Flux Power.
So he's really gone off in that space, and I think made a name for himself. He's got the revenue. He's growing. He's making the right decision.
There's a lot that can be learned from the story of Aptera. If they had stayed focused on deliverables, had a longer timeline, and possibly more funding, it may have allowed them to maintain control over the company and achieve their vision. Luckily, the company's founders have learned from their misfortunes and will continue to innovate.